All right, welcome everyone to session 4 of the century. Today we are continuing with the theme of spiritual deception, which is a very, very important theme overall. And we're going deeper within that theme to explore, contemplate, map, do some training on the spiritual systems that are actually siphoning you. Right. And so, as usual, we're going to start with setting sacred space with everyone in the room, and we will dive deep into the transition.
All right. Righteous Creator, Almighty God, we call you into this space, aligning our hearts, aligning our spirit, our mind, body, and soul to be a one accord, to receive sacred messages, sacred epiphanies, revelations, and wisdom in today's session, decreeing and declaring that the layers of the mind, the layers of our heart, soul, and spirit be purified, decreeing and declaring that all negative energies be removed, anchoring in today's session, as well as in setting this sacred space today, the power of sovereignty, the power of our spiritual awareness, our true righteous consciousness, our ability to discern and seek the true righteous path that is uniquely designed for each and every one of us. As we anchor that energy in, decreeing and declaring that the words that will be spoken today be aligned with integrity, aligned with righteousness, that will allow for breakthroughs, that will allow for realizations, decreeing and declaring that the righteous, pure impulse of God enter into this space, protecting us, guiding us today as we anchor in the power of our own unique spirit, the righteous essence of our spirit, the power of discernment to separate from any and all fallen forces, fallen energies, and fallen systems that do not lead to the righteous path, the righteous purpose of each of our unique destiny, decreeing and declaring that the space, the collective space of the sanctuary be purified, aligned, and anointed with expanded faith, expanded holiness, expanded confidence, letting the sacred power of God that brings forth miracles, making the impossible possible, expand all throughout this space today, decreeing and declaring that the righteous power of the Holy Spirit, the righteous power of the Christ be with us to assist with anointing the session today as we open our hearts, as we tune into our hearts, seeking the sacred power of righteousness, the sacred essence of innocence within our hearts, and allowing it to expand greater and greater as we commence today's session. Let this be done in alignment with the righteous laws of God, the righteous laws of the elemental forces, as we give thanks and say amen, amen, and amen.
Amen. All right. As usual, I want to invite you to a contemplation. On this contemplation, this time around, you can actually share in the chat. And I'm going to share some questions, 2 questions, and you can share what your answers are, just the word. You don't have to go deeper into it. Okay. So the first question is, you can look through all of the spiritual systems, spiritual practices that you have engaged with in your lifetime. Okay, so that's what we're reflecting on today, spiritual systems. So the first question is, out of all the spiritual systems that you have explored, that you have engaged with, which one, not just one, which of these spiritual systems have actually helped you to become more of yourself, more grounded, more peaceful, more inspired, more connected to the divine forces, the divine creator? and just really your spirit, your essence, right? So here you're just kind of like listing the spiritual systems and practices that when you started to work with them, even if you are still working with them, you feel more connected. You feel more like this is it for me. This makes sense to my essence, right? So if in this conversation, we're talking in the context, an example would be like meditation, right? So when I started doing meditation, I felt really connected, or prayer, right? I felt more of myself, I felt more connected, and I could actually start to see the fruits. And the fruits here will be your inner peace, your confidence, your calmness, in life, right? So just share what those systems have been for you that have given you more of yourself and more of connection and peace and calmness. You can share in the chat what that is for you. Ah, yes, actually, that's a good point. You are definitely more than welcome to also share spiritual teachings and cosmologies and ideologies, right? School of thoughts, definitely that also really helps. That's part of it. That's a practice, that's the practice of contemplation and awareness and, yeah, stillness and solitude, right? Beautiful, right? So keep sharing as these come to your awareness. And the whole purpose of this, of course, is always to just help us see how much we already know when something is natural and organic and divine, and when it's not. Hmm. Which is why the second question for today's contemplation is the spiritual systems, practices, teachings, cosmologies that have made you feel more confused, that have made you feel shame, guilt, um, collapse, exhausted, burnout when you started to engage with them. Um, and even a certain level of stagnancy, stuckness when you look at the overall quality of your life since you started working, engaging with them, right? So, what those systems are. These two questions are definitely invitation that we're sharing with you all to activate, to reflect on even beyond today's session. Because I think it matters for us to constantly just check in with ourselves of what is working for me and what is not. And the best way to do that, as we've been sharing in the sanctuary, is essentially to look at the fruits, right? The fruits in your lives are always telling you what is really happening, right? And so this is what today's conversation is about. It is about the spiritual systems that are empowering and those that are not empowering. This will be disempowering systems. And having a foundational understanding of what to look for when you're looking and assessing if this is really working for you or it's not working for you. Right. So we're going to dive deep into this framework for us that we use with our students, our clients on assessing, mapping, discerning when something is empowering and it's not empowering. So we're going to dive deep into that today.
All right. So the first aspect of what we're talking about today is dealing with the very distinct clarity of knowing if you're dealing with a spiritual system or framework that is empowering versus disempowering. So, to pick up from last session, I spoke about being guided by your inner compass, your true knowing of what you're supposed to be doing, feeling called for a particular purpose, for a particular work in this world. And as I said last session, if what you're pursuing in your spiritual space is taking you away from that, that is a warning sign of possibly what you're engaging with is not um, pro-life and is not going to continue to allow you to attain or achieve whatever you're going for. So that in itself is an example of what we're talking about today, the empowering versus disempowering. Um, any spiritual system that constantly returns you to yourself, as someone spoke or typed in the chat about self-realization and going within the self. Um, any system that challenges you to go within yourself, that challenges you to face different parts of yourself, strengths, weaknesses, and the purpose is for the betterment or approval of who you are as an individual, in your spirit, in your mind, in your heart. That is typically a system that will be empowering for you because it's already doing that. And just by me describing it, it's pulling the power in you. It's making you activate something within yourself that sets things to blaze, sets a light bulb off, makes revelations and realizations come to the forefront. It causes you to pause and to think about things differently, to look at things from a different perspective. It causes your thinking mechanism to activate, your consciousness to look at things and say, I thought I knew this, or I have a different look on this, or I have a different perspective. I need to reconsider. I need to review some things. Those are empowering systems. Any system that essentially allows you to go to sleep, your consciousness to go to sleep, your emotional capacity to go to sleep, your ability to fight for your that purpose that's within you that allows you to forget about that purpose and it goes to the background and you're just focused on something else, that's typically a sign that the spiritual system is siphoning or disempowering you because it's training you to be docile. If it's training you to just do what everyone else is doing in the spiritual community, in the spiritual space, just follow the rules, just go along with the script, and it doesn't allow you to elevate what's in you. It doesn't allow you to cultivate, to begin to dig the soil, if you will, of your inner spirit, your inner soul that allows you to feel replenished, but also challenged. If you think about it as friction, something being rubbed, creating electricity, creating movement, these type of systems are not creating movement within your spirit. They're creating a level of unconsciousness, a level of programming that allows you to just be kind of put into a system that says, we are going to do this, and you just follow the instruction with no second thought. Now, I want to say it's important to know the difference between a system that is actually challenging you but is giving you structure, giving you discernment, giving you discipline versus someone who just has a rebellious spirit. There's a difference between someone presenting you a spiritual system and there's structure, there's order, but that structure and order is there for the betterment of your inner world. It's for the betterment of protecting you to make sure that your spirit is safe, to make sure that you don't go into spaces that are dangerous. But then there's individuals that have a rebellious spirit and feel like the moment there are rules, fundamental principles that you're trying to restrict their spirit, when you're actually trying to create a structure, a pathway that they can follow to get from A to B to C. Again, focusing on that person's unique purpose, that unique essence, what they're here to do in this world. So I just want to say that as well as what I'm saying, because it's nuance with the spiritual systems that are empowering versus disempowering. sometimes spiritual systems that are actually empowering can seem disempowering because at the beginning, all the revelation is coming through on how much you don't know, how much you thought you were moving forward, or how much you feel like you were empowering yourself, but everything is being stripped away from you where you feel like you have nothing. That's not necessarily a disempowering system. It's an empowering system. And the opposite is also true. A system that makes you feel like you have a bunch of guys, all these support teams, the Pleiades, all these angelic teams that you're calling in. But as Joyce said earlier, the fruits, the living testimony is not manifesting, and things are being collapsed in your life, relationships, finances. So, yeah, both of those things can be true, but I just wanted to highlight the spirit of rebellion and to be aware of it as a factor in diagnosing if a system is empowering or disempowering.
Definitely. All right. And one of the fundamentals of a disempowering system across the board is that it's usually heavily external based in nature. And by external based, I mean that the system, the practice teaches you to go outside yourself, right? To pour your energy, your attention, your life force, your essence into something outside yourself, right? And so this can either be you're pouring into actual practices, rituals, ceremonies that are constantly outside, though, and they're also not necessarily cultivating anything within you. But there is all these motions and movements that you're doing, but they're not really for you, for your essence, for your soul, right? And spiritual systems that could also be based on external authorities, and this could be human authorities like mentors, actual traditions and lineages. So you're pouring so much into that lineage, that tradition, that mentor. And here we're talking about a significant amount of your energy being poured into that relationship with that tradition, lineage, or mentorship, right? Or the actual mentor. And then there is also the non-human forces where you're also pouring into that relationship, whether this is a god, a deity, an elemental force, an ancestor, a cosmic being, and your energy is constantly poured into that being, and it's not returning you back to yourself, to your essence, to your inner compass. You're not really being trained to connect with your consciousness and to develop your consciousness. You're constantly being trained on how to relate to everything outside you, right? So this is a system that is siphoning you, and siphoning you in the sense of like it's putting your energy elsewhere, right? It's the direction of your life force, your attention, your daily activities is all outside all the time, right? So that's definitely one of the ways in which you can see when a spiritual system is actually siphoning you. It's not natural. It's depleting you in some dimension of yourself, whether it's in your mind, your heart, your soul, your spirit, right? It's usually external. And so here wanting to balance the nuance that yes, in your journey, there will be times where you will need mentorship. And for based on whatever your spiritual journey looks like, there will be times where you will need actual support that comes from physical human beings and non-human forces as well, right? But what you're looking for is the degree in which you are depending on those support systems. If the percentage is high, like 90% of all the decisions, all the energy, all the life force is, 70, 80% outside than internal, then we have a problem, right? That's a red flag. We need to check that. So that is definitely how to look at what an empowered system looks like and a disempowered system looks like. The truth is, as we've been teaching throughout all of this, a true empowered system is usually balanced. It is nuanced, of course. There are times, seasons in your life where you might have to move through, learning ceremonies and rituals and processes and whatever tools that are coming from someone who's your mentor or coming from, spiritual support, and that's a season. It's an initiation cycle that you are in, but you're meant to come out of it. You can't stay there for a long time. You're not meant to. You're meant to go in it and learn and take what you need, and then you come out of it, just like Web has already said, right? The issue becomes we're years and years, and that's the entire system. The entire system is designed to constantly keep you learning and never ever returning you to your essence. All right. So those are the fundamentals of what an empowered system looks like and the disempowered system looks like. And now we are going to go to the thick of what are these systems that we're really talking about. Of course, almost every spiritual system on planet Earth has aspects of it that are true, that are natural, that are divine and sacred. And then there is also aspects of that spiritual system that can be a siphoning mechanism, that can be disempowered, that can be very challenging for us to navigate. But I don't think there is 100% perfect spiritual system on planet Earth. The reason why that's the case is because spiritual systems are usually developed, cultivated, maintained by human beings, and human beings are flawed beings. The ego, the human mind, will always interfere with any process that we can create. But that's also part of the cosmic initiation of mankind, right? And so we can come into that having grace, that we're not trying to say you have to have a perfect spiritual experience with a system or a perfect spiritual experience with a practice. That's not what we're aiming for. But what we're aiming for is the fundamental task that that system is doing for you, for your spirit. And that it should be as simple as it is constantly bringing more me back to myself, to my divinity, to my connection with divine forces. That's the fundamental law. Right? If it's attempting to do that, if that spiritual system is attempting to do that, that is something to, like approach with that level of grace for that system, for the parts of it that are not perfect. Right? And this obviously also applies to any support that you receive, whether this is with human beings or non-human beings. It will never be 100% perfect. Okay. Yeah. So we're going to go into these systems that could be siphoning you, right, based on the experience that you might be having, right? And this is definitely probably maybe where this is going to be triggering. So this is a trigger warning, triggering for your essence, for any of the energies around you. Just pay attention to that. But we just want to invite you to kind of like receive whatever is available, present for you in what we're sharing. Right? So we will map the different systems. Yeah.
Okay, I'll go first. System one is the New Age spiritual communities. It is just essentially a spiritual foundation that is a mixture of different traditions with overall no true, clear, central coherence. New Age spirituality infuses yogic perception, African indigenous perceptions, Christians perception, high level cosmology, astrology. It's a big pot of different perceptions, different belief systems, and they're all melted together. Even psychological perceptions, subconscious ideologies, and belief systems are all fused together. This is not to say that all of these systems are completely false, but the danger is when you put something together with something else and you don't know the true tradition, the true origin, and you are not connected to that culture, that tradition in a very visceral way, personal way. If your connection is based on reading a book or just watching someone on YouTube do a masterclass, there's a huge danger of what this is doing in terms of what we're talking about today, the spiritual system and the siphoning that could be taking place, the hijacking by fallen or inorganic forces, false forces that are not truly aligned with the true tradition, but they are seeing a gateway or a door being opened by way of someone's ignorance and unawareness, or someone mixing, as I said, two different systems together that were never innately designed to go together completely, to merge, and picking and choosing what suits. This is the bigger part, picking and choosing what suits that individual in the moment versus following a true structure that has been created to cultivate the spirit, to cultivate the soul. If you're picking and choosing what you want to hear and what you don't want to hear, there's a bigger opening, a possibility of things going wrong and inorganic energies entering into the space.
Mm, definitely. Yeah, that's actually one of the biggest crises we're seeing here, even in our work in revival. It's these different spiritualities that are put into one pot and you're supposed to just consume it. I think that the part that isn't known is that every practice is connected to an actual living field. Right. So if you're engaging with the yogic principles, you're actually engaging with the true field. And so that means your essence is engaging and experiencing that from that level. And then you have the indigenous and this and this. And it's just like you are literally exhausting your soul from jumping from one field to another. It's just, yeah, it's just a lot, which is why I think at the end, a lot of people with the movement that we've been seeing from New Age to Christ, it's just that energy literally never really brings true grounded fruits because you are never in staying in one location enough to see the fruits in the first place. So the point isn't that there is a falsehood with these spiritual belief systems or also it's the fact that there isn't a proper like foundation and cultivation within one system to enough to see the results, you know. And yeah, that is one of the biggest issues. The second system is the biggest one that we see in our work, and that's displacement channeling, right? And by displacement channeling, one, there is an organic form of channeling, and everyone channels actually. We channel information where information is coming from different spiritual realms and they come through us and we receive them and we engage with them. And sometimes this comes through as dreams, as contemplations, as just, ooh, a download. I just got a download and it solved my problem. Or I now have all this idea that I want to do, right? Uh, we have that natural ability. And then there are some people who are actually even more gifted spiritually to do that process of bringing spiritual messages and sharing that with other people. But there is an organic and natural way of doing that in a way that is empowering to your essence and is not siphoning your essence. And that's what we're talking about today, which is the displacement channeling. And this is a specific channeling where your consciousness, your essence, is either pushed aside or pushed down, and another consciousness comes in to your physical body, into your actual architecture, into your system, and it then speaks out that message, whatever the message is. Right, that is the displacement channeling. That is a big crisis for those who might be in the New Age spirituality as well as in the indigenous spirituality as well, channeling ancestral spirits, channeling angelic spirits, cosmic spirits, starseed spirits, all those type of spirits that you could possibly allow to speak through your body. The danger of that is that the human body was not created to handle two consciousnesses at the same time. So after a while of doing that, the human body will literally begin to collapse in the level of like you will start to physically sense and see and experience actual collapse, where that is within your mental realm, your mental kingdom, how you think, just obviously level of depression and burnout that comes from constantly carrying another consciousness on top of your own. Right. That's the displacement channeling. That is very much a system that is siphoning. A lot of people who are drawn to this actually do have a very powerful gift, but the boundaries and the way in which they're engaging with that is this one that we're talking about. And usually that consciousness is what we've said. It goes into sleep. It's the enter a state of unconsciousness. And so that is why this is a siphoning system. Yeah.
So system number 3 is what we call guide dependency. We spoke about this last session, where every choice, every decision, every moment in this person's life, they have to consult their guides, whether that be ancestors, angels, cosmic collectives, the spiritual muscle of the individual for their own inner knowing, their own inner compass, has completely been trained to look outside of themselves to get um, answers and permission to do everything in their life. Now, you can imagine very simply how much this is already just a problem being a human if this is the system you're using. But it creates a permanent level of spiritual codependency. So these types of individuals are very prone to the systems that siphon because they have already conditioned themselves to accept this is just the way my spiritual life is supposed to be. There's no other possible way of how things can be done, how things can be operated. So the codependency on guides is back to what Joy just said, of where you're not going within yourself, you're not awake, you're programming and conditioning yourself to go to sleep within your spirit. You're conditioning yourself to not ask questions, to not ask difficult questions, most importantly for yourself. This is where you hear the classic story of people saying that they are gifted, but their life is stuck and they can't get from certain places. I won't say all of this is the reason, but part of this that contributes to that is this person has not been conditioned to challenge themselves within, in their mindset, in their thinking, in their emotions. When they reach a wall, they don't have the mechanism, they don't have the mental, emotional, spiritual training to push through the wall or to open the door. Instead, they have the training to, I prayed, nothing happened. I called on my ancestors, nothing happened, so I'm just going to sit here and wait. Instead of saying, I called, nobody answered, what can I do? I'm going to open this door. I'm going to find a key. I'm going to find a way. I'm going to find a hammer. I'm going to find a chisel. That type of mechanism is what should be happening within your spirit, not just giving up. So, guide dependency can create that type of condition in your body.
Definitely. Right. Very intense mapping, but we're here. And we're going to system number 4. System number 4 is the idol and altar systems. And this is essentially where your spiritual systems and practices are at a very significant percentage that are built around directing your attention, your life force, your daily practices, rituals, engagements towards an external being, authority. This can either be to a deity, to a god, to an ancestor, to um, a cosmic being, whatever it is, where essentially you are pouring and pouring, pouring. And this usually is quite strong in tradition-based spirituality or lineage-based spiritualities. Um, but it's definitely a thing that we're seeing in the field where you're pouring your energy into God, into a deity. And the issue with this is that um, it really does require a certain level of discernment to understand the fine print of what that relationship actually means for your essence and for your spirit, what you have actually agreed into by uh, doing those consistent spiritual practices that are for that deity, for that god, for that goddess, for that ancestor, right? And so that's usually the danger. In our generation, the danger is even more so connected to how a lot of the time, some of the people who are doing or engaging with these idol based systems may be doing this with beings that are not connected to that original tradition and lineages because of the new age community and combination hot pot that we spoke about in system one, right? It's just essentially a person can definitely wake up and start pouring that energy into a deity from a different tradition that they just felt like, oh, I like it, I connect with it, I'm just exploring that, so I'm going to engage with that. And the thing is, when you go further in this work, you really do see how real that is. These gods, these deities, they are not just names that you're calling, they're very real. But there's also even further force energies that are connected to some of them. So when we say they're real, we're not saying that they're all wrong or unnatural. That's not what we're saying. We're saying that they're very real. And that means that that's a real relationship you are making, and you should know the fine print, right? So this is not to say don't do it. It's do it knowing what you're doing, right? Just make sure you truly understand what you're engaging with, because most of the time, though, that's not what's happening. Most people don't know. It just sounds so cool to be like, I am evoking Isis. Ooh, so cool. You know, when that's a true being, that's a true planetary and cosmic being that does exist. And then there's also all these fallen energies that pretend to be Isis, and they love, love, love when you're like, I'm calling Isis, and they like to come into that space. So this is why I say was we're highlighting this idol and altar system, because typically in this particular system is where you will literally have an actual altar created for that being with a statue, sometimes with different practices that you learned you're supposed to do to invoke, to venerate that deity, that goddess, that god, that ancestor, that being, right? And so when we step into like, okay, how do I do my spiritual practices with consciousness? You need to make sure that you understand what you are doing, what you're engaging with. Because in our work, the most hardest work to actually come out of contracts and covenants is with um, where there has been a lot of the veneration and the idol work and the altar work for a god, for a deity. It's very difficult to come out of that. So this is why we're bringing that into our map today.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So the next system, or system five, is worship-based frameworks. Um, so I want to name the distinction between reverence, honor, respect, and worship. And even to some degree, it depends on how someone defines the word worship. But what we're talking about for worship-based frameworks that could be cycling um, is when someone is like giving their self away, all of their free will and energy to a force or power for the sake of just giving up on life, just a complete, I don't know what to do. I'm done. I just need something outside of myself to fix this. It's almost like a free fall for anything to come in. So, worship-based framework deals with, it goes past what I said, reverence, respect, honor. It's almost like everything that this force does, or this person, or this individual does, there's no cultivation of the consciousness. There's just, you say I do it, and the biggest issue with worship-based framework is what we have been saying this whole time. It does not cultivate spiritual consciousness. It does not cultivate spiritual independence. It does not cultivate spiritual awareness. However, if someone is doing worship in the sense of what I said, reverence, honor, and integrity, the true essence of worship deals with someone who is praying to God, someone who is praying to there's whatever system they're in, and they're navigating the challenges in their life, the difficulties in their life, their strengths, their weaknesses within themselves. They're seeking help, they're seeking advice from their spirit. They're seeking to connect more with their spirit and align their spirit with righteous forces. They're navigating, walking the path. And then when things start coming through in their life, when blessings start happening, when the thing that they were struggling they get a breakthrough. Now there's this true awe in the heart of look what happened. That's where the true worship begins up. You see the seeds in your life of this spiritual system has allowed me to reach a certain point that I was not at before. And now you have respect, you have honor, you have reverence for this work that you're doing. You have reverence for the space that you're setting. You have integrity in your heart of knowing this is not something to play with. This is not something to take lightly. This is serious business because I've yielded results by following this structure. That's if there is a true worship, that's what it is. It's not blind worship where you just bow down to something with no awareness, no internal personal experience. You see everyone else bowing down, so you just join in the club and start bowing down. You don't ask questions. You don't say, why are we bowing down? Why are we doing this? And you just accept what everyone else is telling you for the simple fact that something in you has collapsed so much, the empowerment muscle within you has been collapsed so much that you're just like, whatever. If I just do this, I will get money. If I just do this, I'll be able to get that job. I'll be able to get that person. And this is the stream which has created the quick rituals that everyone sees of, I need money. Let me go do this ritual. No questions being asked of if is this going to cause harm to anyone? Is this going to hurt someone? It's just, I don't care. I've been suffering too long. I just need this. So that's the worship framework we're talking about and speaking of, the system that does not lead to true empowerment and can lead to definite siphoning, whether it be from in the mental space, most times definitely within the spirit, but also even with the person's ability to uh, be cognitive, to be aware, like I'm in this particular state and I need to do something to change.
Mm, yeah, definitely. All right. So obviously there is so much more that we can talk about in terms of the spiritual systems, but those are the ones that we see at the forefront of the current crisis that we're having in the spiritual community, Um, and yeah, we wanted to share that before we can now start going to, okay, so I got the broader sense of what that might look like, but what does it actually look like in my personal life? How can I map when something is happening to me, right? And this is because there is the bigger system, but there's also little nuanced ways of being that can, create a vital field for you to be siphoned that you also just kind of have to keep checking at a personal level. So we're gonna do that recognition of like how do I learn to assess when something is siphoning me. Okay. So this is how to read your own experiences, spiritual experiences. Okay, so the first one is connected to the first question that I asked, the last question of what systems have made you feel more confused, more depressed, more anxious since you started engaging with them, right? Because when something is siphoning, and here we can go beyond systems to practices, to teachings, to cosmologies, to actual your daily life, right? This includes something as simple as your work, your career in the office, and the individuals in your life, and family members, friends, and so forth. They can be part of a siphoning mechanism, right? So what you're looking for is essentially the biggest way in which you know that something is siphoning you um, is your emotional state, where there is this persistent depression that is not lifting, this confusion that is not lifting, this grief. and where it feels like you are slowly and have slowly become a shadow of yourself, and you're somehow not able to connect back to what you know is your true essence. If you recall what we spoke about last session, that a lot of what we call spiritual war is really the battle for your spiritual birthright, which is your life force, which is your essence itself, which is the gifts that God has given you, the blessings that God has given you and granted you. That's what the warfare is about. So when your birthright is not moving the way it's supposed to be moving, and you can see it in your own life, where you're like, no, I don't have peace, I don't have joy, I don't have calmness, I don't have abundance. Everything has just kind of collapsed since I've engaged in this space, and it's persistent. But remember what we've said about nuance. There might be seasons in your life where, money is not flowing as it used to, relationships are challenging and so forth. And that might be part of a transformational season where you are transforming and letting go of like false ideologies. So that's a different thing. That doesn't mean you're being siphoned when you're like, oh, this isn't, the money isn't coming and I'm constantly fighting for this and this and this. That doesn't always mean it's because you're being siphoned. Sometimes it's because you're going through transformation and expansion, and you have to let go of some things, and your ego is struggling through that. Your flesh cannot handle it because it's too much transformation. And that happens whenever we're on this path. So that's one thing. And then there is where it's 3 years, 4 years, and nothing is changing. And you're still depressed, and you are anxious, and you just have become less and less of yourself. But that's definitely how you check in if something in your spiritual system or practice could be siphoning you. Right? The joyous aliveness that you used to have is no longer there. Couple of years back, when the movement of from New Age to Christ, I don't know if you guys saw that movement happened. I saw something that was fascinating, and now I have consistently seen this happen over and over again. That people who move from that kind of like paradigm, sometimes when they were in the New Age, they were vibrant, exuberant, and like just aliveness in that phase. And then when they moved to another spiritual practice and system, they somehow start to become more dull and dull and dull, right? And just that vibrancy isn't there. And what is happening, the mechanics of that, the PhD mechanics of that, is that the light code has been shut down. And what that means is like the actual light that exists in your essence has shut down because you either chose to shut them down, or the system you're in is not allowing you to actually be as bright as you really are, right? And systems that are designed to disconnect you from your essence will do that. They will manipulate you to shut down your codes, right? And this also looks like what? Shutting down your gifts. Or you're like, I don't see anymore, I don't dream anymore. I'm just kind of like just doing this practice. That's all that's happening. Right. So that's definitely a big, big major thing where you see that somehow there's a certain dimness that has happened internally, where you're not able to access certain aspects of your essence that you used to have, like your vibrancy, your life force, your intelligence, your divine genius. It just has dimmed the more you do those practices, right? The more you're engaging with that system, right? Yeah. And yeah, you want to show the next ones?
So the next one, in terms of recognition and reclamation, one that we've seen quite a bit is high emotional shifts. If this person is experiencing moodiness, emotional waves that feel disconnected from your actual circumstances, this is actually your spirit reacting to the siphoning. It is your spirit trying to yell and scream and say something is off. But from your human self, you can't understand why you're so moody, why you're so aggravated, why you're so irritated. So this is a sign that there's definite siphoning happening, definite to the extreme, even energies coming in and possessing you to create moodiness, almost to push you away or to push people away that could help you, doors that will be open, but you have this restlessness within your spirit that creates this disrupting energy around your environment, the people that you are normally calm and peaceful with. It creates a level of disconnect. As I said, the bare essence of what this is your spirit is unsettled and not happy and is doing its best to express that to you. Unfortunately, in this circumstance, most humans are not aware because they've already disconnected from their spirit. They don't, there's a disconnect of, oh, my spirit is in dismay and it's suffering and it's reaching out. That's typically not how it's being interpreted, but when we look at it spiritually, that's definitely the thing that's happening. Um, in addition to this, it follows, it kind of is the same thing, but slightly different. When the siphoning is happening, another symptom is a fundamental personality shift. To be honest, a fundamental personality shift is also leading to the path that this person's spirit or mind, soul essence, something is being possessed by something else. Something is plugging in and taking over. So when there is a personality shift, when there's someone, even when you look at them and you can see like something is off, or you're looking at yourself in the mirror and something looks different, something looks modulated in some way, that is a significant sign that something else is there, or someone else is there. This person has not only been siphoned, but as I said, there might be something else in there taking residence, partially or completely.
Mm, definitely. And then the biggest one is a cosmology, a teaching, a practice that is very heavy, heavy, heavy on blaming you. It's kind of like narcissistic, the spiritual system, in the sense that it constantly points at your sinfulness. You know, you are a sinful being. It consistently points at your failure, on your not enoughness, on the need for you to correct yourself. The entire fundamental framework is you must correct yourself. And this also looks like this is the crisis of our generation. A spiritual system that is heavily transcendental in nature. And I'll explain what I mean by that. Transcendental meaning that it's training you to go up, up, up only, right? And this looks like salvation. You must be saved. You must do this. You must be healed by doing this, right? And it's what it trains you and conditions you is the idea that there's some error with you as you exist today. And what that does is so depleting to the soul because it's so fragmenting to consistently keep hearing that there's something wrong about your essence, who you are, who you be, right? So these spiritual systems will be focusing so much on that, on you must escape what you are, your nature as it is. There's something problematic about it. And so this is where transcendental spiritualities, they teach you to always be going up. The issue with that is that your energy going up all the time is training you to always be pouring up, 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 never to the physical human who is here alive on planet Earth, right? The true empowering spiritual system has a balanced combination of transcendental. Yes, we are definitely aspiring and definitely on a journey of reuniting with our spiritual selves and the spiritual creator that exists beyond just this earth, you know. But at the same time, there is eminence, which is where the core teachings of African spirituality or animistic indigenous spiritualities that are based on this belief of eminence. And eminence is that everything existing today, the physical body, nature as it is alive, and it is the divine itself in human form. And so we are not always going up. we're also descending here and knowing that our daily lives as they are also God in motion, God in expression, divinity in expression. And so we can't have shame about what we are, about our desires, about our human quirks, and um, incompleteness that we're experiencing, imperfections that are all part of the divine nature. And so when we believe and can have both eminence and transcendental, um, personally, I lean more, actually, more into the eminence, recognizing that everything is divine rather than, oh, it's all sinful, we must escape it. Because those systems, what they have done to mankind, they are at the source of wars, they are at the source of just why human beings really intrinsically are battling this kind of level of both self-hatred and hatred of the other. It's because of those belief systems. So what we're looking at and encouraging, I know this point is definitely very difficult, but when you're looking at the spiritual practices, you're looking if that spiritual practice is helping you to also recognize the divinity in you today as you are, because there's nothing as healing to the soul as being seen as you are today. And yes, there's more to be done, but as I am today, I am divine, um, and I don't have to always be thriving. When we have that as a fundamental kind of like understanding, it's very difficult for us to be siphoned, for our energy to be taken to, oh, I must fix myself all day long, right? Yeah.
Yes, I agree. I will highlight what I said earlier about the spirit of rebellion and constructive healing or criticism. As Joy is saying this, there is a balance, she already stated, between if a system is aspiring you not so much to saying you're sinful being and you're no matter what you do, you're imperfect, but it's challenging you to sharpen yourself to be better within the next month, within the next year. That is the progress. The key component is we want systems for our spirit, for the well being of our spirit, and for our human self that acknowledge who you are in this very moment. Acknowledge and accept who you are, flaws and all, and you are accepted in that spiritual space. But you're accepted with an intent in your own self, not because the spiritual system is projecting it to you, that you want to better for yourself. You want it to be a mirror, a reflection of what is in heaven, what is in the cosmos manifested on earth. That is the key connection for both of them. There is a balance of if you are going to manifest spiritually, you should manifest physically. It may not be the same, but it should be some type of connection of similarity. If you're saying you're a queen or you're a king, there should be some physical manifestation. If you're saying you're some cosmic ancient being way up in the galaxies and Pleiades somewhere, there should be something in the physical that can anchor that in. Because if you don't, what happens is what Joe was speaking to is now you're dismissing your flesh. You're dismissing your human experience. You're dismissing when things are not going right in your life, when money is collapsing, when relationships are collapsing. You're focused on the spiritual and you're not addressing your human self. You must understand in these spaces that connect to the spirit and the physical, this physical experience is a test. It is an initiation. It is connected to the spiritual. You are here to figure out how you're going to pay bills pursuing the purpose that you say you want. That's a spiritual test.
Mm-hmm.
It may seem like a physical test. Yes, it is, but there is a spiritual component because there's a part of your spirit that's being cultivated, that's being activated when you go through the steps, the doors that are being closed, the people that say no, the people that doubt you, and you having to move through that, find the power within yourself, the confidence within yourself, connect to your spirit, get charged up to manifest in the physical. That is the true embodiment of a spiritual system where it addresses your human self, your physical self, but it also addresses the spiritual. Neither one should be neglected or omitted. It's the balance of understanding the spiritual in the human body as well as the human body in the spirit.
Yeah, definitely. And just overall, teachings, cosmologies, systems, practices that kind of keep you always in a state of heartbreak, in a state of constant thriving. Like I must do, I must keep doing all the time. That definitely siphoning mechanisms. An example of this would be, say, polarity teachings, where it's like um, if you want polarity teachings or twin flame teachings, where it's like if you want a beloved, a union, these are things you must do. You must become soft. You must surrender. You must become a provider. You must become a leader. All these things that maybe sometimes you are not holding the logo. You don't have that gift, but you're supposed to thrive and become that. And what happens with that, even like say finances and abundance type of teachings that keep you like always thriving, where it gets to the point where even when you finally do achieve that, you never really feel like you've achieved that because there's always the next milestone to reach. Always the next milestone. That's a very siphoning system. And in our modern times, two big templates and gift teachings that are siphoning are within love, sex, relationships, and money, abundance, finances. This is where you find systems that are constantly, you have to check, is it constantly keeping me heartbroken because I didn't achieve the thing? Is it also always making me feel like I'm not enough because I didn't do this all the time? So these are spiritual systems that are really distracting us from the thing that we really want. And really is as simple as I just want peace in my life. I just want to take care of myself. I want some beauty, yes, some love, but I am not trying to achieve this high ideology of a standard of like this amount of worth or this type of love that is exceptionally epic, that the real human being in front of you who is giving you the things you actually need, you miss on that because you're striving for something else. That's definitely spiritual practices that will be very siphoning for you because all they could lead to is chronic burnout and exhaustion, right? Yeah.
Yes.
Right. So, yes, it's quite a lot to kind of like recognize what those are. But what we are always hoping to do is to kind of like share and answer, how do I then reclaim after all this map? And maybe I'm recognizing myself like, oh, I've been doing these systems that have just keeping me on a state of heartbreak. How do I come out of it? You know? Um, yeah, so this is where the reclamation begins. Right?
Mm. Yes. So that reclamation of the spirit, taking your power back, a good sign for this, or a good measurement, is if you think back to when you were a child and you were genuinely excited about something. It could have been going to the park, going to a toy store, going to see your friends, going to one of your best friend's house. There was a level of life in your physical body that you felt, a true excitement about doing this thing, a true excitement about whatever in your adolescent mind was the most important thing, to be able to do that. We have genuinely accepted that that's not the mindset or the energy to have as an adult. But I disagree. That energy is the actual power of your spirit being enmeshed with your physical body. As we became adults, somewhere along the way, most of us were told that we need to grow up and be an adult. And in doing so, there was a level of collapse and disconnect with our spirit embodied in our physical body. that excitement, that eagerness to wake up every day and pursue as an adult, whatever the purpose, the mission work, the goals that you have, that excitement that shows vigor in the physical body, the awareness and alertness in the eyes, the sharpness in the eyes, the energy that brings about a slight smile on your face. That's the signs that you are embodied with your spirit and it is not being siphoned or has not been separated. So when we're talking about spiritual systems, that is something to look out for. That is a banner to be aware of when we're talking about this, that you should strive for that happiness, that joy, that excitement that you have as a child. It should be with you now. Maybe it has matured to different things, different pursuits, but it should still be there. And this happiness should not be for a moment by using vices, whether it be sex, drugs, um, vegging out on ice cream or whatever it is. It should be a sustained excitement that continues to charge you up. That is the essence of life that ironically is spoken of in so many different spiritual practices, whether it be the Bible, the breath of life, whether it be in yogic teachings of what they pranayama or life breathing. What I'm describing is the thing that should be with us, and we should strive to embody that. And that is done by aligning yourself with the spiritual system that allows that spiritual essence to be with you, not to be separated to where you're fogged down in the mind with obligations and doing things because you have to, but your spirit is not with your human body walking the path side by side.
Mm. Yeah, definitely. Um, a sentence comes to my mind when we're talking about how do I reclaim. At the very beginning of my journey, which I'm ever so grateful for, my mentor at the time um, said to me that all spiritual systems practices that you're doing should do this one thing. She had a specific statement that she used to say, which I loved, which is it should do direct back flow return to God, everything that you're doing. And what she meant by that is that every practice that I'm doing, every system that I'm doing, it should direct my spirit, my essence directly returning to my creator. And it should be a backflow return. Like this will be a top up return and a backflow return, right? So it's the flow, the direction itself should be it starts from within me and I'm going back to God, backflow to God. And it's direct. Those are the instruction. It has to be direct. Your practice should be direct, as in like, yes, you may need mentors. Yes, forces are real, and you have teams, spiritual teams, and so forth. But you also have a spirit that is ancient, that is eternal, that also has the same abilities, capacities as other beings that you are so interested in engaging with. So having the curiosity to kind of learn how does my spirit do it actually, right? And cultivating that and training your spirit to actually do direct connection with the divine. The truth is, it's not easy, it's not something we all know, but if your practice is based on doing that direct backflow return, right? You are more likely to yield the fruits that we're talking about that we're seeking, right? So that has been for me, a role of how I reclaim and how I check in every single thing. Is this returning me directly to God? Is it also doing a backflow return? Is the direction, do I feel that this direction is actually coming from within my physical form, my body, my mind, right? And it's going back, implying that there was an original root and this root still exists somewhere in me. That root is the connection that I have because of my spiritual birthright as a child of God. And I am in an endeavor to reconnect, reclaim that, reinstall that in my daily life, right? So that for me has been the biggest rule of how you reclaim and what that does. And along the way, in all the explorations, and in this moment, we're more than allowed to release any shame and guilt about what we have explored, because that doesn't serve us anymore. And sometimes that was a journey, a path for our soul, our spirit, that we may not have the full context of it at a human level, but we're here today. And as we are here today, what we are wanting to bring back and cultivate and reclaim is taking what I was just saying and beginning to just cultivate that more, right? And what tends to happen when you do direct backflow return to God is true organic benevolent support will just bring itself from the physical human beings to the spiritual forces that are supposed to help you, right? And even spiritual systems that may exist, imperfect as they may be, when you have done that direct backflow return, the inner compass that Waf was talking about, you can actually differentiate and discern when something is unnatural in your system, and you can also learn how to purify it, right? And that's the point. That's what, when we're on the path of spiritual mastery, spiritual awakening, we want to be able to be like, I can see what we're trying to do here as human beings, why we're trying to connect with, say, our ancestors, and I can see where it's a little off. We have projected something here that's wrong. So I think what we need to do is drop this and shift it this way and add this way. That's kind of like where we are going, what the true cultivation and reclamation will look like. And then this one also, I think, is liberating because it helped me in my journey. Don't be afraid to drop a system that is not working for you, even if it feels useful to you in whatever dimension. Don't be afraid to drop it, because typically, guaranteed, I have seen this. If there is a truth to that system, to that practice, if it's there and it's meant for your soul, it will actually come back. That's like the reclamation. You are not binded to just be in it. You can leave it, even if it feels good, to allow your spirit to test it and to see. And then when it comes back, you're like, okay, I see now why it has come back. And I see what is true about it and what I need to release completely forever. Right. Yeah. So, of course, there is more that can be shared, but we believe we shared it enough today, right? Yeah, that was quite a lot today. And yeah, thank you everyone for joining us today on this in this session, the sanctuary. This was definitely one of the hardest themes for us, and we're really excited for the next themes. In August, we're going to be exploring the theme of spiritual authority. Really brilliant, brilliant stuff coming your way, so you can join us and check the specific topics we'll be exploring. Two topics in August that we'll be looking at that are connected to spiritual authority. And it's also just kind of like a continuation. If you are paying attention, we're kind of like building a body of work. And this body of work is interconnected to the body of work that we've been developing for the last couple of years. And that's the work of revival, which is helping you to revive and to rebuild your spirit and your essence, and to build your life in the ways that we're speaking of, that is connected with true spiritual science and true spiritual, you know, truth and yeah, processes and practices that are actually aligned with the true cultivation and evolution and development and growth of your spirit and yourself. Right. So that is what we're doing in Revival. We have two pathways that are open now. And these pathways for Revival, the first one is the Holy Combat Fundamentals, where we do teach about spiritual warfare. But more than anything, I think for us, what we are most excited about with Holy Combat Fundamentals is giving you the actual practices that you can practice in terms of defending yourself against spiritual battles and warfares and interferences that are happening in your life. That, I think, is the goal of the Holy Combat Fundamentals. And it's self-study with one-on-one work with us as well every month. And then we have a more comprehensive one for those who need more comprehensive support, which is part 2, the comprehensive psycho-spiritual work. Very brilliant work that I think we are very excited about. This is part of what we have been focusing on in the last 3 years, and why, for those who know, like our previous engagement in social media, it's significantly reduced because we went deep into study on how can we do this and ensure that people get the fruits that they really need, right? So this is what we've been building this last couple of years, and even the sanctuary is part of that body of work to break down what our work is. Our true work at the core of it is that we're here to return you to your essence and to support you to build your life in connection to your essence and direct backflow return to God. That's the core work. Even if it does include bringing very difficult conversation, those difficult conversations for us, and a lot of what we have built throughout our work publicly, they were actually just levels of the same thing. And if you've been listening to us for these couple of years, you will see that, right? Whether we were doing deep mapping of the ancestral fields, or deep mapping of the soul fields, or deep mapping of the inner child, all of it adds overall to how do I create my life from who I am truly in spirit, in soul, in heart, in mind, including in my personality, right? And for a lot of people drawn to our work, we love the divine, we love the spirit, we are so drawn to that, right? And so, how do I do all that when I have such a deep connection to the spiritual work, to the spiritual realm, into the divine, when I love God and I want to integrate that into how I live my life? That is what this work is for and who it's for, right? Yeah, for us, we get really excited by seeing physical fruits where, you know, people are becoming more of themselves, people are becoming more creative, people are becoming more peaceful. They are able to create and have abundance come in, and even more exciting when it starts to happen almost in a magical way, miraculous way. That is what we're working for.
Yes.
Yeah. So thank you everyone for joining us in this recording today.